So in a full-scale conflict between the US and its allies and Iran, its proxies remains in the realm of wargaming at the moment, and it has the potential to be one of the worst conflicts in world history. With tensions rising between the US and Iran, let's take a closer look at what such a conflict might entail. If we start by taking a broader look at both the nations, US is definitely a larger country with a GDP of $20 trillion as compared to Iran's GDP of over $400 billion. US is geographically a larger country with more population, with a purchasing power of almost $60,000, and Iran has a purchasing power parity of $20,000. Now let's get into the specifics of the military power of both the nations. When it comes to the defense arsenal, US spends more on defense than any other country in the world, and it is number one in the rank of power, where Iran, which is slowed by sanctions, stands at the 13th position. It is hard to get the exact spending down to the last dollar. The military budget of US is more than $600 billion, and Iran has a military budget of $14 billion. When it comes to the range of military roles, US has over 1 million active personnel as compared to Iran, which has over 500,000 active military. And US has more than 800,000 reserve personnel, while Iran has 350,000 reserve personnel. US has an all-volunteer military. Thus, it has over 73 billion volunteers available for military, and Iran has over 23 billion personnel available for the military of the country. Now, if we take a look at the different military departments both the nations have, and we see that US has its State Army and Army National Guard, Navy Marine Corps, Coast Guard, State Air Force and Air National Guard. Whereas Iran has its Army, Air Force and Navy, and most importantly, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, which can potentially mobilize many hundreds of thousands of personnel. The 40-year-old Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has three broad classifications in terms of operations. It has the Quds Force, the Basij Resistance Force and Hazrat-e Baqiyatullah. Now, there is no doubt that in terms of equipment, US has by far the biggest and arguably the most advanced military in the world. But Iran, despite having fewer troops than the United States, has the advantage of being a geographically difficult country to assault. Let's now shift our attention over to other international stories. As for years now, Libya has seen violence and chaos. There have been several players in the mess that is Libya. One of them is Turkey. And President Erdogan has now decided to send in troops. The aim is to ensure stability for the UN-backed government in Tripoli. But that is easier said than done. And our next report gets you all the complete story.
Thousands of mourners gathered in the main square in the Libyan capital Tripoli on Sunday, a day after a military academy in Tripoli was attacked. 30 people were killed, 33 were injured.
Today we are attending the funeral of the heroes in Martyr Square. They were from different Libyan cities. Indeed, to God we belong, and to God we shall return. Today we are calling to sever relations with Egypt and the UAE, and to all who think they can tamper with the Libyan nation.
This is just a sample of the violence and bloodshed that Libya has witnessed over the years, after its longtime ruler Muammar Gaddafi was killed in 2011 by NATO-backed forces. Since 2014, there are two rival administrations in Libya, one led by Khalifa Haftar in the eastern city of Tobruk, and the other backed by the United Nations and based in Tripoli. Tensions have been on the rise since April last year, when the offensive by Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army was launched. The LNA has been trying to topple the UN-backed government. Thousands have been killed and injured in the fighting, and more than 120,000 people forced to flee. The UN-backed government is supported by Turkey and Qatar, and now Turkey has decided to intervene by sending its troops. On Thursday, the Turkish parliament voted to allow troop deployment in Libya. The Turkish president has said the deployment comes after Libya's government made a request for military assistance, and the aim is to stabilize the government in Tripoli.
They are now coordinating this. There will be an operation center in Libya. There will be a Turkish Lieutenant General leading, and they will be managing the situation over there. Turkish soldiers are gradually moving there right now.
The troops will be deployed for 1 year. The scale of the deployment is not yet clear. US President Donald Trump had told Erdogan just last week that interference would complicate the situation in Libya. General Haftar has already called on Libyans to take up arms. The international community is keeping a close watch on the situation, and a further escalation of tensions between the two administrations cannot be ruled out. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.